All right. Well, hello everyone. Welcome back to the Pacific War Channel, where we cover the entire history of the Asia-Pacific War from 1937 all the way up to 1945 and all the major events that led up to it. Joined here by fellow YouTuber Scott. How's it going?
Good, very good. Thank you very much for having me on tonight. I totally appreciate it. It's a great honor.
It's not a problem. And of course, this episode is timely as we're coming up to Pearl Harbor. I thought, who better to go to than yourself? Actually, why don't we start off by you just telling us a little bit about your YouTube channel and your background?
Well, my name is Scott Freund. My YouTube channel is SFR Productions, and I'm kind of an amateur historian, documentary filmmaker, and I got my start doing documentaries about Pearl Harbor. My first was Pearl Harbor: The Real Story, and it turned out quite well. It actually was sold by the National Park Service bookstore there at the Arizona Memorial, starting in 2000, and it's been sold there up until probably about 2020, and when they kind of went away from DVD sales. With that study of Pearl Harbor, I've extended into other areas of the Pacific and into Europe. So being an amateur historian, I just love to travel and then document what I see and the history about what was there. So that's kind of what I do as my hobby, is sharing my love of history with people.
Awesome. And stating all of that, there is a lot to know about Pearl Harbor, and there's especially a lot that goes unsaid. And that was, I kind of think, the inspiration for the subsections that we chose for this episode. I wanted to find things that people don't know so much about, the lesser known facts about Pearl Harbor. And this is going to be broken down into 5 videos, and then there will be a full podcast, most likely on Podbean, and perhaps on the YouTube channel, and perhaps also on the Kings and Generals channel. But stating that to the audience, I'll just let you know the 5 sections that we're going to cover today. The first one is the story of Takeo Yoshikawa. The second one will be the midget submarine attacks in Pearl Harbor. The third one will be the military facilities that were hit prior to the ships, and afterwards with the second wave, of course. The fourth one, the extent of the damage to the ships, the significance of what really happened at Pearl Harbor, and what wasn't hit, for that matter. The fifth one, the Arizona footage story that's going to be brought by Scott. And the last one is kind of a silly little add-on. The sixth one is going to be a silly conspiracy theory, one in particular that's known as the backdoor theory, which anyone who is a Pearl Harbor enthusiast has definitely heard about this one and all the various aspects of it. All right. Oh, here, this is what I was excited for. And this is actually why Scott is here. I wanted one section particularly on something that you found. I'm going to let you just tell the story of the footage.
All right. Well, I've always been fascinated with Pearl Harbor. This has been from when I was a little small kid. You watch Tora Tora Tora, and it just something happens, and it fascinated me and led me on to this whole amateur historian thing. But my main focus is always been photographs and films. And I love watching documentaries, but I noticed when you watch a documentary about Pearl Harbor, it's always the same footage, and it's not actual footage. So when you're watching these dive bombers, they're like, those are American dive bombers painted like Japanese. And it's like, I don't get it. You mean to tell me that there's no actual photographs of the attack? And you'd think, okay, yeah, maybe people didn't have cameras or films, but we know that Hawkinson had his camera on board the Solace because we see the Arizona explosion from the Solace and other various things. The thing about that film footage too is he filmed a lot that is never ever put anywhere else, which is amazing why we don't use it or that it's not used. So I just became video production is not that's not what I do for a living. It's a hobby. And I thought, you know what, I'm gonna do a documentary about Pearl Harbor because I don't like the way documentaries I see on TV were run. You get a documentary, the first 8 minutes is information. you go to a commercial break, it comes back, and it's 4 minutes of recap, and then it's 4 minutes of new, and so on. So I started traveling America, interviewing Pearl Harbor survivors. Um, and I did this every weekend that I had off from my normal job. I would fly somewhere and I'd go to a Pearl Harbor event. I'd record their stories, and I recorded probably 75, 80 stories on video. And I realized that you need film footage to do this. So what I did is I went to the National Archives, and I really started looking at everything that's there. And what you become instantly aware of is that there is a mountain of stuff, but nobody ever goes for it. And, you know, because I have a passion for Pearl Harbor history, I was willing to sit there and go through everything that I could possibly do. And so what ended up happening is I got all these films back home. I started running them through a computer, and I realized that there was some stuff here that I had never seen before ever. And I was like, wow, I was fascinated. There's a lot of Japanese plane footage where people were shooting with, their little hand cameras, and you can see Japanese planes flying by, and it's like, why don't they use this stuff? Because it's shaky, it's during combat, and it makes it a really.
I've seen myself one. It's hard to, yeah, see some stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I was like, okay, but what ended up happening is running through this film on my computer. The way the computer analyzes it, it takes it and puts it in 30 frames per second. That's how the editing machine works, which is our modern day 30 frames a second. And I kept seeing this flash in between these segments of film. And I kept thinking, what is this flash? Why is it there? Is it an edit break, or what is it there? So I slowed the computer down, and I took individual frames and made them pictures. And I started clicking through individual frames, and I'm like, wow, that looks like the Arizona explosion filmed from a Japanese airplane. And I'm like, I wonder if this is one of their propaganda films, because the Japanese were notorious for making these propaganda films.
Yeah.
And they would put this out, and some people actually use it in documentaries, saying, "Oh, look at this attack footage," but it's a propaganda film. So I was analyzing it. Is this the propaganda footage? And I realized real quickly that no, it was not, because it was filmed from fairly high altitude. And so then I started looking at the picture. I'm like, okay, there's a bright white ship behind this explosion. What is that? That's the Solace, the hospital ship Solace. And I started looking at other pieces in here going, wait a minute, this is set up exactly. This is Pearl Harbor. This is the attack. That is the explosion of the Arizona, filmed from a Japanese airplane. So what I did is I took a screenshot of that, and I sent it to the superintendent there at the Arizona Memorial. Her name was Kathy Billings. And I said, look at this. Can you look at this? Um, and then other people started to get involved with it. Daniel Martinez and a couple other people. And the next thing you know, they asked for a copy of it. And I sent them a copy, and Kathy Billings said, "You've discovered something that's never been seen." And I'm like, well, I don't know if I could say discovered. I mean, it's always been there. Just somebody just hasn't went and found it and brought it to the public's attention. And so Kathy Billings had me fly out to Hawaii. They held a huge press conference. The media was there. As a matter of fact, CNN did a story about it when I got back home there in the mainland. And I gave it to the Park Service and said, here, use it for future analysis of the attack. So I used it in my documentary, Pearl Harbor, the real story. And so, back to this documentary, I got all these stories, I got all this film footage. And what I did is I thought, you know what, I don't want to cover a lot of aspects of, what was the history of the Japanese and what happened afterwards. I basically focused on basically the 24 hours of December 7th. So, I interviewed the pilots that were coming in from the Enterprise, and how some of them got shot down and were killed. Um, so it's those guys. It's Tilchapari from the Antares. It's guys at Wheeler Field and Bellows. So we put this whole thing together, and what I did is I said to myself, I am not going to use anything that's not authentically taken that day. So I didn't want to use anything. So I went around and I collected all the 14th Naval District photos. There's thousands of them. I traveled to every location I could possibly find to collect photographs, um, the National Archives for their films, and that's what we put together. We put together a documentary. I think it runs almost 3 hours, and it's all authentic films. And we put that documentary or that clip in there to show this new stuff. And what was unique is, the Park Service gave me some pretty good kudos about finding it. It has been used in a number of other documentaries that you see on like the Discovery Channel and all that, which that's fine. I'm glad that my research helped them put something together. But to me, that was a huge thing in my life to find that film footage, and I have it for anybody to watch on my YouTube channel.
Yeah, and you can
So
click right here to go see that. Yeah, I'll add it. Yeah, it's incredible, like to find something like that. It's
yeah,
such an incredible event too. The explosion of the Arizona. I can't even imagine what that would have looked like being on ground level to see something like that. Oh my God.
yeah. You know what's amazing is the Hawkinson film was actually shot in color,
Mm,
and um, what it's kind of sad. So that film footage was duplicated in black and white because it was much cheaper at that time in the 40s to do black and white. That's why we always see the black and white footage.
yeah.
But the color film, if you do some research to look for the color film, um, apparently it was stolen or taken from the National Archives, and all we're left is with the black and white. Now there are a couple film frames that you see on different websites and other various locations, a color frame, but it is, if you look at that explosion of the Arizona, it is just mind-boggling, and especially when you look at it from the sky. When you look at it from the Hawkinson film, it's incredible. It's mind-boggling. You think, oh my God. But when you see it from the sky and how big this ball of fire was,
Yeah.
it is mind-boggling. It really is. And I mean, I used to be a member of the Arizona Reunion Association, which is the veterans of the USS Arizona. And I used to go to their events and talk with them. And when you hear them talk about that flame and the heat and what they saw, it is just, oh my God. I mean, I just, the stories are amazing. I it's, I can't even really tell you the stories because some of them are so graphic
Yeah.
of what these guys saw and did. And it's like, wow, unbelievable what those guys went through.
I know, just for members of the audience to know, Pearl Harbor, it was almost 2,500 U.S. personnel were killed, and about roughly almost half was the Arizona, I believe,
Yeah, I think
in
it's
a single
1,177.
instant. It's
Yes.
insanity that many people were killed. It's
Yeah,
horrible.
a lot of those guys were absolutely probably vaporized.
And then
I think
stuck
it's,
underneath when it was
yeah,
sinking, so they were trapped. Oh,
yeah. I mean, if you think about this, Admiral Kidd, if Admiral Kidd's Naval Academy ring, so he was on the bridge when the bridge collapsed forward after the explosion. His Naval Academy ring was found welded into the top of the conning tower.
wow.
Nothing else of him, I think, was found, but his Academy ring was. I mean, that is. Can you imagine that?
That
So, I
is
mean, it's unreal.
well. It's thank you so much for telling us this story because it's just like you said, you found something completely new, and it's an incredible feat. Yeah. Ah, maybe perhaps just for the audience members to hear one more time, if you could just shout out your YouTube channel just to let them know what they could find there, why they should go see your stuff.
Well, it's SFR Productions, and you can find it. It's the top of the page. There are a couple SFR Productions apparently on YouTube, but mine you'll see the Pearl Harbor Memorial, the Arizona Memorial on the top. A new thing that I'm actually doing is, like I said, I travel a lot. I've started a new series on my page called History Adventures, and the concept with History Adventures is people always have their phones and they're looking at their phones. And while you're sitting waiting for the doctor or something, what do? You scroll on your phone. So, History Adventures, I'm taking people on trips around the world to different military bases, different military battlefields. And I make them into little 10-minute or less little snippets, a little bit of history, and then what you see today. So, the newest thing that we're doing on our page is History Adventures, where we take you around. But you'll also, when you go to my page, my YouTube page, you're going to find lots of Pearl Harbor stuff. You're going to find a lot of stuff on Tarawa. I'm very excited about Tarawa because next year, for November 2023, that is the 80th anniversary of the Battle of Tarawa in November, and I will be going there for 3 days to film, to tour around, and do a bunch of stuff. So you'll find a bunch of films on Tarawa. You're going to find some Civil War stuff. That I put together. That's from productions that I did long ago. Um, Also, if you go to my Facebook SFR page on my Facebook page, you're going to find tons of photo albums where I just share thousands of photographs. I have an album on Iwo Jima that's 800 plus photos. I have Tarawa photos. There's probably 500 photos there. I have Peleliu photos, Guadalcanal photos, Pearl Harbor, you name it. So, and I love sharing history with people. So, again, my YouTube page is SFR Productions, and my Facebook page is SFR Productions, also, where you can go and get photos. So, I enjoy doing that. I enjoy history. It's a passion of mine.
All right, so please check out his channel. And thank you again for coming here, and thank you again for sharing the story and this photographic stuff that you found. It's such an incredible story that I just love that even to this day we still find things in history that have been not uncovered yet. That's what makes it so exciting.
And thank you for having me. It was a great honor being on the show tonight. Thank you.
This has been the Pacific War Channel, over and out.